Clarity rarely arrives when love feels safe. When he was present, consistent, and emotionally available, his steadiness didn't demand analysis. It simply existed. And because it existed quietly, it was easy to doubt it. Familiarity softened its importance. You questioned feelings not because they were wrong, but because they didn't create chaos. Calm felt confusing when you were used to emotional intensity being mistaken for connection. Only after he left did the noise fade enough for understanding to surface. His absence removed the distraction of reassurance, explanation, and effort. Without him actively holding space, your mind finally slowed down enough to see what had been there all along. But clarity that arrives through loss always carries regret, because it doesn't come with access. When he was there, certainty felt optional. You believed time would wait. You assumed he would stay long enough for you to figure things out. But certainty doesn't grow on demand. It grows through presence, consistency, and emotional safety. And once that environment disappears, certainty becomes painfully sharp. Now you understand not because you changed, but because the environment changed. Absence forces honesty. It removes the safety net of someone choosing you daily. And in that quiet space, realization hits harder. The thing you were unsure about wasn't him. It was your readiness to value stability while it was still available. The tragedy isn't misunderstanding, it's timing. You didn't become clearer too late by accident. You became clearer because leaving was his boundary. And boundaries have a way of creating clarity that comfort never could. Walking away is often misunderstood as failure. In reality, it's usually the final act of strength. He didn't leave because he couldn't handle you. He left because he could no longer carry the emotional imbalance alone. Constantly proving your worth to someone who keeps questioning it erodes even the strongest sense of self. At first, he tried, he explained, he reassured, he adjusted, not because he lacked confidence, but because he valued the connection enough to fight for understanding. But over time, effort without appreciation becomes exhaustion. Love should deepen identity, not require its constant defense. Each time his intentions were doubted, his consistency overlooked, or his loyalty tested unnecessarily, a small fracture formed. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet fatigue. Eventually, love stops feeling mutual when one person is always on trial. He didn't leave in anger. He left in clarity, a clarity that said, I should not have to beg to be seen correctly. Choosing peace over persistence is not weakness, it's self-respect. Staying would have meant shrinking, explaining endlessly, and accepting a version of himself that had to perform for validation. Strong people don't leave at the first sign of difficulty. They leave when staying requires self-abandonment. And once someone reaches that point, there's no dramatic exit, just a calm decision to stop negotiating their worth. His silence isn't punishment, it's protection, and his absence isn't proof he didn't care, it's proof he finally cared enough about himself. You don't miss him in fragments, you feel him in function. His presence regulated more than emotions, it anchored your nervous system. He was predictable, stable, emotionally consistent. Those qualities don't announce themselves loudly, they quietly hold everything together. When he was there, life felt steadier even on uncertain days. You didn't have to overthink, self-soothe constantly, or question emotional ground beneath you. His presence absorbed weight you didn't realize you were leaning on. Now, without him, the emotional labor has returned to you fully. The silence feels heavier not because it's empty, but because it's unbuffered. There's no one grounding emotional fluctuations, no external calm to lean into. And that's when realization hits. You didn't lose excitement, you lost safety. People often confuse love with intensity. But intensity spikes, stability sustains. His absence didn't remove drama. It removed regulation, and the body notices that before the mind does. Anxiety increases. Doubt echoes louder. Emotional self-management becomes tiring. You're not grieving the man, you're grieving the emotional ecosystem he created. One where you could exhale without effort, and once that's gone, it becomes clear how rare it was. There's a moment in emotional relationships that looks like withdrawal, but is actually completion. When he stopped explaining, chasing, or fighting, it wasn't because he stopped caring. It was because he had already said everything that mattered, and nothing changed. Explaining is hope, chasing is belief, fighting is investment. When those stop, it means hope has been replaced by acceptance. And acceptance is irreversible. This stage doesn't come with drama. It comes with silence, not the silent treatment, the silent decision. He no longer needs to be understood because he understands himself clearly now, and that clarity doesn't reopen doors. By the time someone emotionally checks out, they've already grieved the relationship internally. They've rehearsed the loss. They've made peace with the absence before it physically happened. So when too late arrives, it feels sudden to the other person, but overdue to them. At this point, words don't land the same. Apologies don't reach. Promises don't persuade, not because they're insincere, but because timing is everything in emotional availability. Too late isn't punishment, it's consequence. And once someone chooses peace over connection, availability is no longer negotiable. Silence is the final boundary, and it's the one that doesn't reopen.